All right, we're going to call to order at 3:10 p.m.
Why isn't this working? Do we not have internet?
The Wi-Fi password for Hilton meeting is LNC convention. It's all lowercase.
Mine said 2024 convention.
Just kidding, it's 2024 convention.
It says I'm offline. Hold on one moment, please. And let's see if it'll work now. Request edit access.
Or is it just convention?
Hold on.
And we will stand at ease, actually. Do we want to do public comment before roll call?
With a capital C?
Why? All right, let's hold on.
You can sign on to Mars.
It's not letting me log in. Hold on, if I can just down,
You try with a capital C.
I am just going to put this on a Word document since I'm not projecting it. When there's a will, there's a way.
That's what I've been told.
And I can edit in Word.
Region 5 will come to order.
So we're called to order at 3:10. And so Chair McCardle, Mr. Watkins, there's Mr. Hagopian, I am here, Mr. Blankenship is here, Mr. Malagon is here, Mr. Nikela and Mr. Rufo are absent.
Mr. Nikela's on his way from the airport.
Okay.
He should be here soon.
Ms. Januskavich is present, Mr. Benner is present, Mr. Dassing is present, Mr. Ford is, Mr. Heyman is here, Ms. Hayes,
She's not here.
Mr. Nana is here, is Mr. Tunjevich here?
Will not be here.
He will not be here. Ms. Vest. One moment. Mr. Alstad. And Mr. Burke is not here. Mr. Cowan.
Here.
Mr. Dar is here, right? Mr. Hall is not here.
He's somewhere.
Yeah,
He is here?
I reminded him.
He's around.
Okay, he's not in the room. Mr. Hirsch is here, Mr. Hyman is here, and Mr. Redpath is here. So, Madam Chair, we're missing Mr. Nikela and Mr. Rufo. For regionals, we are missing Ms. Hayes, so that region will be represented by Mr. Alfstead. We're missing Mr. Tunjevich, so that region will be represented by Mr. Redpath.
All right, thank you, Madam Secretary. If there's no objection, I think we're going to go to public comment. 2 minutes per person. Our vice chair for a total of 10 minutes.
Is that enough? 5 speakers. 2 minutes. I like it.
It's
We could always
6:15,
extend.
All right.
so after we close here,
If
7:00.
necessary, if so inclined, we'll move to extend. Do we have anyone who's not on the LNC who's interested in giving public comment for up to 2 minutes? Going once, going twice. Okay, hearing none.
Let me just say, as parliamentarian, I'm happy to be here. We have a great convention.
Thank you very much. That's from Richard Brown.
And actually, I want to get you down, because I always put you down special.
Well, you would know.
That's how I was staring over you.
Okay, so none.
All right,
So,
that's it.
so going back to here,
Madam Secretary, would you mind just sort of running down
Yeah.
the proposed agenda since we don't have white or a screen?
yes. There were no, and it's typical, reports submitted. I did submit a secretary's report. So did you want to give any oral reports for chair, vice chair, treasurer? Okay, so there is a secretary's reports in the OneNote that I distributed. There's nothing much to go over. I'm just obligated, and our auditors really appreciate it when I report all the email ballots, so that's on there. But I do have a couple of sets of minutes that I said I would get approved this meeting. And one moment, if I can get my internet up, but they were put on the list. So is our last 2 meeting minutes, one was, I believe, an XCOM meeting, and one was an LNC meeting where we had those 2 in 1 week. They've been put on the list. One correction was made, and I put a version 2, so I am moving to approve those last 2 sets of minutes so they could be finalized before end of term.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of,
Because the computer's down, if it was our last 2 meetings, we had our last XCOM meeting and the last LNC meeting that dealt with the suit and appointing a committee.
which were both in May.
Yeah, they were really soon.
Are we talking about the ones that were like 15 minutes each respectively?
Yeah, they were super short. The minutes were like 3 pages each.
Just making sure everybody understood what we were approving. Do we have any discussion, any questions?
I'll second.
Any objection to approving those sets of minutes? Going once, going twice? Okay, hearing no objection, the minutes are approved.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I would love to hear Mr. Todd tell us, 15 words or less, what's our money situation today?
Yeah, so I laid out a couple of emails over the last week that showed how April was and how the convention was. Our cash is in pretty good shape right now, assuming the convention budget expenses are where the expenses were told to be about a week ago. We're going to be in pretty good shape. We brought in, just crossed over the $300,000 mark for this month. I think yesterday, Angela. So we just hit 300,000 or something like that in Stripe donations for the month. So it's been easily the biggest month on top of all the convention funds that are going to get released.
So we don't have to borrow money now?
We've gotten to today without borrowing money, as long as the convention expenses are where we think they're going to be. We should be.
Can't hear back here.
Awesome.
Okay, can you hear me?
You're fine.
Nice.
Okay. Put out a couple of notices on the board for the last week, talking about our finances, but essentially we got to today without taking any loans. There was talk of whether or not we needed a loan. We decided not to take a loan. We got to today without taking any loans. If the convention expenses come in as we think they're going to, we won't need a loan afterwards either. That's where we are right now from a finance standpoint.
We're going to start with Mr. Redpath. If he still has a question, we're going to work around.
Yeah, I mean, are you speaking in terms of cash there? I mean, the convention cash is recognized as revenue, well, this month. It will be recognized as revenue under generally accepted accounting principles. But so that the $300,000.
I'm saying that we've raised $300,000 in May.
Okay, but what I'm saying is does that include convention revenue?
It does.
It
but
does
it does not include previous convention revenue that we also get released in.
Oh, okay.
So when we end up when we do the May financials, the next treasurer does the May financials, the revenue will be much higher than $300,000.
Okay.
Coming out of it, it'll probably be over 5 is what I would imagine, and potentially higher than that.
Let's pause right here, and then I'm going to keep going down. Ms. Yanuskavich, do you recall what the last convention revenue numbers were?
I can get it right now.
Okay, fantastic. When you have it, just let us know. Who was it, Mr. Blankenship?
I was just going to clarify, as you all know from being on the Convention Oversight Committee, that we've been seeing all the dings come in, and we've had well over $10,000 in donations today.
Fantastic.
So,
Thank you. Mr. Nana?
Yeah, kind of along the lines of what Mr. Redpath asked, do you know what the breakdown is of that $300,000 between convention and non-convention revenue?
I do not know that this month. That gets broken down.
I believe Ms. Kennedy would have a better idea, but she is not here right now. Staff is...
Oh, it's not that big of a deal, I'm just curious.
Do we have another question? Okay.
I did have a point. It's not a point of information because I'm not requesting information, but I would just, if you would indulge me, the computer just came back up, so the dates of the 2 minutes, just so that they're for the record, was May 8th and May 11th.
May 8th and May 11th for the minutes. Thank you, Madam Secretary. Okay, let's see what our next agenda item is, with the understanding that Ms. Yanuskavich is going to let us know on revenue.
Okay, one moment. Go back to the policy manual. We don't have staff or council,
Staff and council are not present. Well, technically staff is present, but they're running registration and credentials.
And Dr. Lark always submits a couple reports, one for his campus organizing and one for his international work. With all of these convention receipts, this is a good problem to have. I've got like 10,000 emails, which everyone who's been getting them knows. I will forward them tonight so that everyone could read up Dr. Lark's work. I wasn't able to get them into the OneNote in time, and you guys probably wouldn't be able to access it in here anyway. So I will get those to you. Next, what is regional reports, no one had submitted any, but I didn't know if you wanted any comments at all on regions.
I do not anticipate region reports.
Okay.
Does anyone have an oral report that's, yes, Mr. Cowan?
Region 2 did a good job in bidding for our placement in the convention. We're basically front row and center. Good to network.
Beautiful.
I think we beat Colorado.
Oh, snap.
Tennessee was number one.
You want to
Tennessee was number one.
You want to get in the middle here?
Shots fired. All right, any other region reports? Going once, going twice, hearing none. Okay, next agenda item.
Let me pull that back up. I'm so sorry that this is a little unorthodox. New business with previous notice. The only previous notice given was of the approval of the minutes, which we had already had taken care of. So now it is new business without previous notice.
All right. New business without previous notice. Mr. Malagon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a motion. I would like to move to censure Mr. Tunevich for his comments to and about the Credentials Committee members individually that were perceived to be personally threatening them with legal action which could reasonably lead to improper influence through fear and chilling of speech.
I do have that language.
All right, that motion needs a second.
I would second that motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to, do you mind repeating your motion so everyone hears it?
I move to censure Mr. Mark Tunevich for his comments to and about the Credentials Committee members individually that were perceived to be personally threatening them with legal action, which could reasonably lead to improper influence through fear and chilling of speech.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to censure Mr. Tunevich for comments he made to the Credentials Committee that were regarding
Or perceived to be personally threatening them
perceived
with
to be
legal action.
personally threatening them with legal action because it could be perceived to be
Improper influence.
improper influence. For everybody in the back. Mr. Redpath.
What was the substance of these emails? What was said that was perceived to be threatening?
If someone wants to pull it up and read, I mean, he put it in bold. I'm not going to comb through my emails. I think we've seen it ad nauseum. I mean, there were several. I mean, I guess I would ask which one. There were at least two.
Any and all.
Sort of legal action.
Any and all would be my question. I mean,
If someone wants to pull it up, I mean, I can give it.
I mean, would we give it, I mean, this is a non-trivial matter, I think. I mean, I think sure.
I'm trying to pull one up, Mr. Redpath.
So Mr. Redpath is requesting to see the emails, and our secretary is going to take a look, see if she can find them.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
in the meantime, convention revenue as of right now, $432,685.
Fantastic. So over $432,000 in convention revenue as of right now. Thank you. Thank you, Convention Committee. Thank you, staff.
Well, I have one. This is a response from one of the Credentials Committee members, so how they reacted. I'm trying to find the original email, but this is a reaction of a Credentials Committee member. I'm not going to put the member's name into the public record. Just going to say what she says, but I'll show you my screen. Mr. Tunevich, I really hope you are not threatening to sue us if we do not vote your way. That could be considered blackmail in a way, and I would think that would violate the NAP. Whether or not it actually does or does not, is one issue. It was certainly perceived to potentially be that way by this member. I'd be more than glad to show you my screen.
Okay, but I'm speaking, my question is, what are the emails? What was Tunevich's language?
Oh, I found
I
it.
have it, Madam Chair, if I may, since I made the motion.
Go ahead, Mr. Malagon.
So it's a long-winded email, but I'll...
Oh, that's not the one I found. I found the shorter one.
You
Okay,
can
so
do-
there's
you can
two.
do both. So
Okay.
I'll do this one. This one's dated May 20th, 2024, and this was Pacific Daylight Time.
Point of personal
9:18
privilege. Mr. Malagon, could you project your voice a little more?
I can, sorry. So the email that I have pulled up is one of the long-winded emails. The secretary will point out the shorter one. But this one is dated May 20th, 2024 at 9:18 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, and I will only read the relevant portion. Quote, "And I hope they have a quick meeting that decides that scope based on quality work product balanced with speedy results. But that scope doesn't include obtaining bylaws or meeting minutes from state parties as is currently being demanded. In fact," and the rest is in bold, "continuing to do so would likely provide great fodder for any legal or procedural action against credentials that relied on these unpermitted requirements in decision-making," end quote.
Madam Secretary?
Yes, this is an email. It was directed, I'm not sure who was on this chain, to be honest with you, but it says, "I've sought outside advice privately on this topic and feel strongly about these conclusions. Nothing you've said previously or now has refuted them. I strongly recommend the Credentials Committee proceed cautiously for their own protection. It may be wise, for example, to see if the LNC's D&O insurance covers the Credentials Committee. I doubt it, but it's good to check." And then he goes on to say something unflattering about me. I don't care. It was the Credentials Committee portion.
Mr. Nana? And then,
I have a point of parliamentary inquiry. Remind me what the threshold for passage is for a new business without prior notice.
2/3, I believe.
No, ma'am.
Nope.
This is considered a regular meeting. We're allowed to have new business. It would be a majority. Certain items would require a higher one of things that require prior notice, like amending the policy manual.
Is a disciplinary motion of any type have a higher threshold?
This is not a disciplinary motion. It's an expression of disapproval. A disciplinary motion would require a trial and an investigatory process.
Okay, did everyone hear that? Okay. Mr. Malagon?
I would just like to add, I omitted this earlier, but the email that was sent out by Mr. Tunevich that I quoted from earlier was sent to the public list as well as the Credentials Committee itself. So it was a direct target to the Credentials Committee. This wasn't something that was spouted on social media that was thinking out loud. He purposely intended the Credentials Committee to see this email.
I would like to add one thing, Madam Chair. We had a Credentials Committee member today vote, "I abstain upon advice of counsel."
Twice.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Malagon, any further discussion on this motion? Mr. Redpath?
I don't see that language stating an opinion. I do not see that language as being overly strong or terribly offensive. I'm going to vote no on this.
Thank you, Mr. Redpath. Anyone else? Oh, Mr. Nana?
Yeah, my opinion, not even taking into consideration whatever he said in an email. We're one day from regional caucuses where, it's highly likely that a lot of this board changes. I think that this is just, I don't see a point. I think it's just feeding the fire to feed the fire at this point. So I will also be voting no.
Thank you, Mr. Nana. Madam Secretary?
I just want to say this. There's been plenty of times people have said the party can get sued. A million times. I've probably said it. I've been told, and I'm not going to give the names, and you can discount everything I say if you don't like not having the names, of committee members. I'm not even going to say the name of the committee, some are Credentials Committee, saying you're going to have a hard time getting committee volunteers from now on if they're going to have to be worried about being personally sued, not the party being sued, about the committee members themselves being sued. And some credentials committee members, this is hearsay, were considering resigning because of this. And one of them, at least, I believe what they said, felt they had to go talk to an attorney in order to be on the credentials committee.
Mr. Hagopian?
So, two things. One, I think that I've heard on the other side of this, many people saying that if we do certain things, people are going to sue and we're going to lose ballot access, blah, blah, blah. What I heard in the email that Mr. Maligan read seemed to indicate something along those lines. I didn't hear the personal attack. And the one that you read, Madam Secretary, that was a little more of a personal attack. But one thing I will say is that the person that said that they didn't want to vote based on the advice of an attorney seemed to also think that there was something there. So, so maybe there are actions that shouldn't be being taken. So I'm going to vote no on this also.
If I may respond, Madam Chair, or I think someone else might have been ahead of me. Let's say there was something perhaps going on, that there was something to it, as Mr. Hagopian said. I don't think so, but let's just say there is. It is inappropriate to be putting that kind of stuff on a public list. If there is potential legal liabilities of this party, that should have all been handled amongst the LNC in executive session privately.
Mr. Nikela?
It's never a good look when a member of the board threatens or alludes to a potential lawsuit, especially for a committee as important as the Credentials Committee. It's not a good look. It's not something I think that is a board member should ever threaten, and I think it should be behind closed doors if there is a problem, if there is something, because that can lead to actions being taken, a sort of pressure, external pressure on such a committee. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Maligan, and then Mr. Hagopian.
I would just add that it's worse when a board member actually does it.
Thank you, Mr. Maligan. Mr. Hagopian?
Yes, the point of order was that second one that you read, Madam Secretary, was not on the list. It was my understanding the first one was, and the second one was not.
The second one, I think it ended up getting forwarded. I have to tell you, I don't know. I'm sorry to say this, but I hate Outlook. I'm having a real hard time understanding.
That's why it sounded like you were looking for who it got sent to.
For those in the gallery, if you couldn't hear, they were trying to figure out if the second email was public or private.
Because it went to...
I think it originally went to Angela and I, but I think it got propagated somehow more. The original... The original addressees were myself and the chair. But other people I know saw it because they mentioned it to me. And I don't go sending stuff out.
Okay, we're going to jump to Mr. Benner, then Mr. Maligan, then Mr. Ford, then Mr. Blankenship.
Yeah, I have grown to be not the biggest fan of Mr. Tunievich. In fact, I think that he's personally wronged me. And that said, though, I think he actually did wrong in this situation, especially if it led to the intimidation of a Credentials Committee member to consider resigning. But that said, I think it's best to let this die, because Mr. Tunievich, I know in one of those email threads, responded to one of the members saying that no, he did not mean that there's any legal action coming. So I think the wisest thing is to just let this flame die down and vote against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maligan?
So I respectfully disagree with Mr. Benner. The Credentials Committee was to say that they were upset and they felt personally attacked and were, I mean, this was a threat to them and that's how they saw it. This is not how you get volunteers. Everyone here is unpaid. Everyone here is an unpaid volunteer, and for a committee as important as Credentials, moving forward for any other, it's going to be really hard. We already have a difficult time finding volunteers to take on these roles and to take on other roles, and if the LNC does not take a stance that threats, veiled or not, or varying degrees of veiled, are not taken care of and they're not completely just disavowed, then we're going to have a problem finding volunteers for these committees if the LNC does not have the back of other committee members.
Mr. Ford?
If it's appropriate, if I could ask you a question and then react. What is the practical impact of a censure in this case? Is it simply to have the board assert that,
Our comments.
It goes on the record.
okay.
It goes on.
With that in mind, then, I think it is appropriate to support this, and I'm the go-along to get along kind of guy. I had conversations with members of the committee who reached out to me, and it is grotesquely inappropriate. And I will say that you can say or call me anything, and I have no problem with that as a board member. I've put myself in that eye. But to do that to folks who are facing the kind of just the time, the drudgery, the work, the determination, and the controversy, to put them in that position, to me, is supremely unkind and worthy of some form of verbal recrimination. If that's all we're doing, then I think it's well-deserved.
Thank you. We're going to jump to Dustin Blankenship, then Mr. Watkins and Mr. Nana, then Mr. Dassey.
Yeah, I think the language of those emails probably, some will say sound like sage wisdom. Other people will probably say it sounds like veiled threats. The honest truth is it probably falls somewhere in the middle. It's probably more aligned with a stern warning in his own way. I would not take the approach that Mark took. I think that it was inappropriate, but I'm not sure that it rises to the level of censure.
And I would just say that he could have done this, if he wanted to tell us this, it didn't have to be on the public list. To me, that just seems like an obvious, he just wanted it to be out there. That, I don't know what his motives were, but I think somebody of his experience would have better judgment than to just put it out there in public.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. We're going to Mr. Nana and then Mr. Dassing, and that's the only hands I saw raised so far. Mr.
Can you
Nana.
let Mr. Dassing go?
Yep.
Then
Yep, thank you.
Point of inquiry. What was the one email that you said you didn't know where it was?
I think I found it because a Credentials Committee member said, can I be taken off this email chain? And I'm looking at...
So is it the one where he said, I strongly recommend the Credentials Committee proceed cautiously? Is that the one you're referring to?
God.
Was that the one that
It's the one that's titled, the Credentials Committee defines its own role, but that neither includes a review of state bylaws nor state meeting minutes. I think the email...
The one that was...
I believe both emails were in the same chain.
They're on the same chain, and that's why I have it right here. And it was to the Credentials Committee and the LNC.
And the public list.
So it was publicly known, so...
Yeah.
Can you just... Then the second point, can I call the question?
Mr. Nana?
That's what I was going to do.
That's what I thought. Okay, question's been called.
Who gets it? Second. They both want it.
Oh.
Well, you guys should argue about that for another.
I like it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to call the question.
Okay, give me 1 second because I don't have a recording going on. So it was Mr. Dassing that called the question?
Yes.
And it was without objection?
That's what I'm going to ask. Any objection? None? Okay. No objection.
Okay, I have a ballot. Just give me 1 second.
Okay, hearing no objection, we're going to go to a vote on this motion when our secretary is ready.
Mr. Cowan?
I don't get a vote, but I would say no.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Bennett?
I would say no.
Mr. Blankenship?
No.
Mr. Dassing?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
No.
Mr. Heyman?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Mr. Alvstead?
Yes.
Mr. Malagon?
Aye.
Mr. Nana?
No.
Mr. Nikela?
Aye.
Mr. Redpath?
No.
Ms. Vest? I'm sorry, I'm a little hard to hear.
No.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Ms. Yanuskavich?
Yes.
Madam Chair is 9-6-0. Do you wish to vote?
What's majority?
Oh, it's a majority, 9 yes.
Yeah.
Your vote will not make a difference.
What is a majority?
Well, it would be 10. How many people do we have here? If you vote.
9 is a majority of 16.
How many people do we have voting right now?
We have 16 people voting.
Okay, chair's not voting.
And it's, okay.
All right, the motion passes. Mr. Malagon?
So we have an additional motion, Madam Chair. I would like to move to ratify and adopt the Secretary's acceptance of the Region 1 agreement with the states identified in her email announcement and their election of Mr. Adam Heyman, Mr. Roman Garcia, as representative, and Mr. Andrew Chatterton as first ranked alternate, and Mr. Nick Shahan as second ranked alternate.
Madam Secretary, do you have that motion language?
Yeah,
I'm coming right there.
It was provided ahead of time, so I can get it.
So can you just repeat it one more time, and then we're going to go to
Yes,
Mr. Neal.
I will do it louder, and I can correct my name butchering. I move to ratify and adopt the Secretary's acceptance of the Region 1 agreement with the states identified in her email announcement and their election of Mr. Adam Heyman and Roman Garcia as representatives, and Mr. Andrew Chatterton as first-ranked alternate, and Mr. Nick Shahan as second-ranked alternate.
Thank you. Mr. Nana?
So I don't know if this is a point of order or a point of parliamentary inquiry. What authority does the LNC derive to be able to even do this? I don't think to ratify a region formation. I don't think that's in our purview at all. I mean, it's certainly in the Secretary's purview. She has to receive the documents, but I don't think that's the purview of the entire board.
I think I will ask our parliamentarian and have a sidebar with him.
Can we do that before we vote?
Yeah, I can.
And Madam Chair, can I perhaps say something?
Sure, go ahead.
I agree with you up to a point. Our bylaws need a lot of work. And there are some things that it leaves within the decision solely of the Secretary that makes me somewhat uncomfortable. One of them is the delegate allocation numbers. I just get to send them out. What if they're not right? I can tell you the reason why I'm in support of this motion, though I think it's the Secretary that has the authority to look at it and make sure it's informed. And there's a region once it's sent in. It has to do with something we talked about in the Bylaws Committee report. If the LNC doesn't make a decision ratifying my decision, there's people who are disputing this regional agreement. They don't have any appeal rights to the Judicial Committee. If there's a decision of the LNC, they have appeal rights to the Judicial Committee. So while I firmly believe this is a valid Region 1 agreement, and that's how I intend upon treating it, by making it a formal vote, it triggers the rights of members to appeal to the Judicial Committee. If it's just my sole decision, it's very questionable as to whether they could ever appeal it.
So to just speak to my motion and possibly answer Mr. Nana's concerns here, it's not that we have any authority to do X, Y, or Z. The authority lies within the LNC Secretary, and all I'm doing is that we support this because this has come into question. So that's all that is. This is for questioning her ability to do X, Y, or Z. I'm motioning to ratify that she does have that.
I have a question that's pertinent. I'm going to jump to that. That's
Okay, so we'll go with Mr. Blankenship, then Mr. Nana, then Mr. Ripath.
And Karen, you may be able to answer this question. I'm sorry, I'm getting a little...
And I'm hard of hearing.
Sorry, I'm going to try to speak up. I guess, I don't know how to say this. My concern would be that we are ratifying a decision about the formation of the next body, which feels like we're at least in a gray area, if not a kind of weird area to me. Like, I feel like...
Is that like, you're asking me?
I'm asking you, I guess,
Okay.
I mean, not really.
I mean, I have to do that already.
That's fair.
The turning in of the regional agreements has to be done to me by the end of the second day of convention, and I just tell everybody what it is. I tend to think there needs to be another process for this in our bylaws eventually. It puts far too much power in the hands of the Secretary. And again, appeal rights. If we do nothing, it just is what it is. I firmly believe it's not a belief. I mean, within all the rules that I've been trained as and receiving the signed agreements, there is a valid Region 1 and they've had valid elections. But unhappy members, if this decision, it turns into a decision of the LNC, they can then have a direct path to appeal to the Judicial Committee. Right now, it's very fuzzy whether they could appeal to the Judicial Committee.
Mr. Mann?
So if our decision is not binding either way, because we don't necessarily, and maybe the chair will have an answer in a second, if our decision is not binding either way because we don't have the authority to actually do this, what are they appealing? They're appealing a decision that doesn't matter anyhow. So I don't know that appeal rights matter because they can't. I don't think they have recourse either way.
Well, they're claiming that I'm violating the bylaws. And if the LNC ratifies it, they can then claim, now I don't think I am, but this is their claim. If the LNC ratifies it, they can claim, well then the whole LNC is violating the bylaws, and they'd have to make the argument of how it violates the bylaws in an appeal. But a decision of the LNC secretary is not appealable.
We're going to go Mr. Redpath and Mr. Michaela, and I believe we'll go with Todd and then Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, I understand what the secretary has said. I mean, I'm not deeply knowledgeable about the controversy, but I believe there's controversy regarding Wisconsin signing on to this region because of a financial obligation that is in the agreement for all of the states in the region because of that future financial obligation from each state in the region, I believe, to pay for travel or something. His things that the chair did not have the power to sign on to this himself. Based on my knowledge right now, I'm pretty queasy wading into this whole situation right now, and I tend to think I'm going to vote no on this, notwithstanding the appeals rights argument that I've heard from the secretary.
Mr. Redpath, would you mind if I responded just briefly or no?
Well, why don't we,
Okay, I'll raise my hand.
Okay, so we'll go Mr. Michaela, Mr. Agopian, Mr. Benner, then back.
Okay.
Did Region 1 already vote on their regional representatives?
Yes.
They already did, okay. So they're not going to convene tomorrow to have
Nope.
regional caucus?
No, the regional agreement provided, like California does, for the election of its representatives ahead of time.
Mr. Ergo.
Okay, so quick question on this. If the LNC were to ratify it, then it is appealable?
Yeah. Okay. They would have to make the argument of how it violates the bylaws, but it would be a clear path to appeal.
But if I understand right, you're going to approve this?
I've already approved it.
And then if we ratify it, theoretically, we're giving them the right to appeal?
That is my understanding, and that's my intention.
I don't care. I don't think we should be deciding this, but I will vote yes if it theoretically gives them more rights.
Yeah, I don't believe we violated the bylaws, but obviously they do, and then that gives them a right, because otherwise there's no review body.
And that's where I'm at. Like, I don't want to make that decision either, but I want them to be able to appeal if they want to. So.
Okay, so here's my understanding after chatting with our parliamentarian. The bylaws are not specific on ratification, but if there are people who feel aggrieved and like they want to file a JC appeal, saying that we ratify it or that we don't would give them a path to that. And I think the fact that our secretary has already approved it gives us a little bit of jurisdiction over it. And I don't know that I would do it in the reverse, but she has already approved it. So it has touched us, for lack of a better term.
But just to clarify, you're saying it doesn't matter, the appeals argument, it could be either way. If we vote no, they still have the right to appeal. If we vote yes, they still have the right to appeal.
Well, someone's going to appeal it.
Right. So it doesn't really matter. As long as we take this vote, it doesn't really matter? Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, because I'll tell you personally, if there's a no vote, I'm appealing it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd say it doesn't matter. Well, it matters to them, but
Sure.
But a vote gives them the ability to make an option.
It's the vote that does, not the results of the vote.
Gotcha.
We had
Yeah, Madam Secretary, does Mr. Brown believe that this motion as written is in order, and that's your understanding too? Just
So the way that it works is I consult with a parliamentarian, but we don't hammer
Sure.
questions at him.
That
So he
makes
helps me formulate my.
Is it your understanding that this motion as written is in order? That's fair to say.
Yeah, I would have called it out of order if I thought it wasn't. I gave you like all of my thoughts on it.
Gotcha. And just to follow up, it's not real clear to me in Article 7, Section 2, Clause C, that the LNC should play any role in this. The way that the language is that it's affiliate parties that create and dissolve the regions. The only kind of impetus and connection to the national party seems to be telegraphing the results of that to the Secretary. I'm hesitant to vote for this simply because of that. It seems like this could set a precedent into wading into all sorts of future regional agreements where I don't really believe that's the national party's role. And I do respect the opinion of the chair and possibly the parliamentarian given her advice on this, but I suspect it might not be in order. So that's what I'll say.
Thank you. Who's next on deck?
I was.
Okay, Madam Secretary.
Well, I'd like to just Mr. Benner's comments. Because the LNC has to decide whether the two representatives that show up at the post-convention meeting are actually LNC members, no, I do think that's definitely implied in that Article 7. It's unavoidable. Our bylaws are bad in this area, and if it sets a precedent, I hope it's for our next bylaws committee to improve. Well, I personally wish we'd just get rid of regions. I think I've said that a million times. But if we don't, we need to improve the procedure greatly because it's super unclear. We need to improve it in delegate allocations too, as a matter of fact. But it's super unclear. But I did want to answer. Just Mr. Redpath had made a comment. The regional agreement does not obligate to any dollars. It obligates to a negotiation of up to a maximum amount, but there's no minimum. It could be zero. A state could say, nope, we're not going to agree to any. So it does not obligate to any amount because each state has its own threshold as to what a state chair can and cannot agree to. This was part of the negotiations, and what would happen if every state said we're not going to pay anything, the possible repercussion could be that the regional representative will resign, and then they'll elect a new one who's okay with that.
I believe that Mr. Heyman had his hand up.
I was just going to make the point that Karen Ann just made.
I mean, we talked about this
The Region
extensively.
1 agreement does not obligate any state to pay any dollars whatsoever. It just points out that there will be another agreement to address the financing afterwards.
And the agreement can be zero.
If nobody pays anything, that's fine. They're not obligated to pay a nickel. So that was just a misinterpretation.
Mr. Nana?
That, I actually agree with that interpretation, but there is another issue at play that we haven't, and if we're talking about it, we might as well put it all out there, is whether or not the Wisconsin chair had the authority to sign this agreement based upon their state's bylaws, which there's a question of whether that individual did or did not have the authority. And I think that's where the challenge to this would come if there was a challenge of some sort. I think that's the stronger challenge, just in my opinion. But again, now knowing that as long as we take a vote one way or the other,
right.
I'll be voting no because I don't think it's within our purview, but I'm glad that it'll give somebody appeal rights with some, either way. So I think we should take the vote, but I will be voting no.
Okay, any other comment? Discussion, Mr. Nicola?
Do we have a minority report on whether or not the Wisconsin State Chair had the authority to sign the agreement or how that process?
A minority?
I shouldn't say minority report, but do we have is there an opinion?
Whose opinion? I mean, whose opinion are we looking for?
Is there anybody on the LNC that has any?
I can tell you, so after the signature was put on the document and submitted, the Wisconsin board had a meeting and they were unanimously against the decision and the chair abstained from what I understand on that vote.
Okay, that is, please let, well, are we going to?
If I'm wrong, correct me.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Wisconsin board called a meeting with less than 24 hours notice when their bylaws requires 3 weeks notice and 2 absentees. So it was not a valid meeting whatsoever. And the chair informed the board the night before at a valid meeting that the agreement was signed. And nobody made any kind of motion at a valid meeting.
I'm not speaking to whether or not that second meeting was valid or invalid. I just know that supposedly, again, I don't know, I wasn't there, supposedly they consulted with a parliamentarian who informed them that if the chair agreed to agendize the meeting and call the meeting to order, that it would somehow, listen, that's so deep into Robert's whatever, but that's also out there. I mean, we're talking about it, we'll talk about it.
The rights of absentees are inviolable. You cannot call a meeting without proper notice unless everybody attends, because then they've waived notice. If everybody attends, they've
So
waived
you're
notice.
saying board members were not present?
2 board members were absent.
Right, so, I mean, just to add on to that point, California, I looked at their bylaws because I wanted to see it for myself. They have similar language to what California has. We have 7 days notice, but it can be waived if all members are present and expressly, waive their right to notice, which did not seem to happen here.
They don't even have to expressly waive it. Under Roberts, if you show up, you've waived it.
Right, but we still, whatever, but the point still stands. They have similar language to what California has. They would all have to be there to...
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Which they didn't do.
That makes sense.
All right. Any further discussion?
I'll call the question.
All right.
We were already not talking. Oh, God.
Okay. Do we have, it requires a second. All right, it's been moved and seconded to call the question. Any objection? Going once, going twice.
Martin, get your...
Okay, hearing no objection, question is called, and we are going to go to a vote when our secretary is ready.
Mr. Benner?
No.
Mr. Blankenship?
Pass.
Mr. Dessing?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Mr. Gopian?
Yes.
Mr. Heyman?
Yep.
I'm voting yes. Mr. Alvstead?
Aye.
Mr. Malagon?
Aye.
Whoops, sorry. Mr. Nana?
No.
Mr. Nikela? Mr. Redpath?
No.
Ms. Vest?
No.
Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Ms. Yanuskavich?
Yes.
Okay, Madam Chair, it's 10-4-0.
Okay, chair's not voting, the motion passes.
Okay, if you give me
Madam
just...
Chair, I passed.
Oh, I'm so sorry, I apologize.
Yes, but I will abstain.
All right.
I am so sorry.
My redneck accent sounded like yes as opposed to pass. I get it.
I don't think that's your redneck.
I apologize for that.
I move to adopt a resolution that Mr. Blankenship is getting out of hand. Has been, and probably for
All right.
Let me just double check.
Yep, we're going to give our secretary one moment, and then we're
worse.
going to continue. He is clearly not the worst person at this.
You're the second worst.
I cannot find that, I think I lost our policy manual. Well, no, we are new business without previous notice, so after that, there's nothing unless people have.
Okay, so how much? It is 3:58.
I would like to move that the vice chair have to shave his mustache on stage as a fun.
That is out of order. I'm doing a time check. Do we have a couple more agenda items coming down the pipeline? All right.
If
You have at least one.
If there's not, I don't know whether you want to hear anything about ballot access.
I certainly do.
Okay.
So I think that we're going to go probably until about 4:30 for those of you in the gallery who are curious. It could go slightly longer, but I don't think we're going to 5. Okay, so who has, we're on new business without previous notice. Any other business?
I'm sorry, we just saw a picture of the vice chair without a mustache. It was amazing. I highly recommend everyone come and see it.
Oh, that's gotta be an old picture.
That is terrible. Also, I don't want to see it.
How dare you say that?
Consider it harassment.
Escalation here.
Okay.
I understand the mustache now, and I withdraw my motion.
All right. Any new business before we jump around? Is that it? Okay.
We might have one more piece of business if we want to discuss it, which is, and this could be the next LC too if we don't worry about it now, but we do have reservations for the Marriott in Miami, at the Miami airport for August 22nd to the 25th. So if we wanted to make a motion to have our next LMC meeting in Miami the weekend of August 23rd, We already paid, we have to pay.
I think that that would be best left to the next LNC, but I think it's good to make it an announcement, because they do carry the contract.
Okay.
Mr. Redpath,
Yes.
did you want to discuss anything?
Yes, I would. I'd like to discuss a guy who's been a petitioner for the Libertarian Party for about 30 or 35 years. Well, I got involved in petitioning in 1988. I've been involved in petitioning since 1988. And I've known a guy by the name of Daryl Bonner, who's out of Philadelphia. You know Daryl. A lot of people around this table know Daryl. Daryl has been petitioning for the Libertarian Party since at least the 1990s. I definitely remember knowing him in 96 and probably before that. And he has been a loyal LP petitioner, accepting reduced compensation, where he could, go elsewhere and make bigger money, but he's been extremely loyal to the Libertarian Party, and a great petitioner and a great person. And his mother, Cheryl Ford, has been a great petitioner for the Libertarian Party over the years and is a great person. And Daryl has had health issues starting when he's had diabetes and has had health issues in August 2022. His left leg was amputated below the left knee. He's had several health issues subsequent to that, been in the hospital a couple of times. Unfortunately, I learned yesterday that on Tuesday, Daryl suffered a serious stroke. And he is hospitalized in Philadelphia, and it's not looking good, is what I've heard. And I just wanted to mention Daryl, and I'm certainly thinking of him a lot these days, but it's these petitioners do this week in and week out. I mean, it's tough. I mean, I just spent a week in Kentucky. I went down to Kentucky Wednesday of last week, left when the polls closed at 6 p.m. on Tuesday for the Kentucky primary. But it's tough out there when you go through. I mean, there are good days and bad days, and last Thursday, I scratched out 52 signatures. I mean, I literally scratched out only about 52 signatures that day. Weekend was a lot better at the Covington Mayfest. A lot of people there. But even on Tuesday, Kentucky primary, but I still had to deal. In the morning, I had to deal with a visit at a polling place from a couple of Jefferson County Sheriff's deputies, and then I went to a post office in the afternoon in Louisville and had to deal with a couple of Louisville policemen who got called upon me as I was petitioning on the public sidewalk in front of the post office. So this is what petitioners go through out there so much of the time, and Daryl has been a true stalwart, and I just want to wish him the best. Thank you.
Is he conscious right now?
Pardon?
Is he conscious?
No.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Are we still in new business without previous notice?
Yes, we are.
I would like to move to recognize Daryl Bonner for his years of service to the Libertarian Party.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recognize Daryl Bonner for his years of service to the Libertarian Party.
One moment, because can you please, I want to make sure I have the name spelled correct. Will you?
D-A-R-R-Y-L.
And last name?
B-O-N-N-E-R.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wanted to make sure.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Ford?
I had the opportunity to work alongside that on a number of occasions, and one could argue that he was one of the figures who helped pull out 50-state ballot access. On a couple of occasions, Rhode Island has been the last state in the nation. I feel terrible, and I would hope is there something that we could do for his family financially, for those of us in the party who were impacted. Singular sense of humor, interesting guy, life force, and there were times he carried petitioning in this party on his back. So if there's something we could do, please let us know.
Okay, I'll keep you posted.
I think that you should raise that at the post-convention LNC meeting. And if there's time and organization to do something, even just some gesture beforehand, we should try to do that, like get them flowers or reach out to family.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion? And if not, we can go to a vote.
Is there any objection?
Would you like to just,
Acclamation.
Without objections.
okay. If there's no objection, the motion passes.
Thank you.
All right.
Madam Chair, I'm just, and maybe this, is a future thing, I know he's not conscious, but maybe it would be nice to put this on an official letterhead to at least send to his family.
Yes, but we're going to see if we could do something in addition
Okay.
to that. Maybe we can send flowers. We'll see if there's
Okay.
something we need that
But
doesn't...
sometimes we do these motions and they just disappear into the ether rather.
Yeah. Mr. Ford?
Is there a possibility of recognizing him on the convention floor?
Yes, there is. All right, any other new business?
Not new business, but I have a motion when we're ready, when we're done.
I think we're done.
Okay, well-
if there's nothing else, I think there's just one or two
Yeah.
things left.
I would like to move to adjourn this meeting to, at the call of the chair, with the LNC to be determined to be automatically adjourned at the adjournment sine die of the convention, if not adjourned earlier.
Second.
Mr. Nana?
Why?
Okay.
The reason being is this is a very, I'm trying to word this carefully because I'm not trying to give people ideas.
Yeah.
This is a very sensitive convention with a lot of moving parts. And I tried to put in a policy manual amendment, which would make it very easy for us to have an emergency meeting. I believe that the amendment that was put in place made it harder, but not impossible, at a normal convention. I think everyone here can recognize this is not a normal convention, and something can happen at the spur of the moment where we need to just frickin' meet.
Let me, if you don't mind, I will speak to it. A handful of people made threatening comments about disrupting convention business on social media. They were very aggressive. I would not call any emergency meeting to order unless we were forced out of the building or there was something akin to a natural disaster or death.
Can we put that in motion?
No, because I don't think that, I don't want to be stuck to that particular language if some other disaster I didn't think of just happens. But it's not, I'm not going to do it if there's not a disaster. I think it will be overwhelmingly unpopular and...
And you'd need a quorum.
Correct.
So this just leaves us in session until the end of the meeting.
Right, it leaves us in session where the chair can call us back to session.
So what's the
and-
harm in that? That's what
And if she doesn't do it by adjournment sine die, we're automatically
It's
adjourned.
automatically adjourned. There's no harm. People are paranoid and they think we're going to do some sneaky, evil emergency thing.
Damn, I thought we would do something.
Oh, well, damn it. Why not this motion?
The situation is that when you are in a position of leadership, you're under more scrutiny than the average member or layperson. And for whatever reason, it's totally not a big deal if people threaten to blow up our convention and act in crazy behavior, but it's a controversy and a conspiracy if we put in an emergency measure to deal with it.
I mean, I didn't put this on the LNC list, but just so you know, I'm not going to say that they threatened to kill me in a phone call, but I got a phone call that was basically a threat, grievous bodily harm, or a death threat when an announcement was made. This is not a usual convention. It's the only such threat I've ever gotten in my years of service on the LNC.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Malagon and then Mr. Redpath.
This is kind of a no-brainer. A lot of you are surprised to see me here. I kept this under wraps for a reason. After I did legitimately decide not to go, I've gotten death threats, I've gotten threats of violence. So if it's me,
I didn't mean it.
and I'm a fucking delight, okay? So I can only imagine with the secretary and the chair and other people or convention as a whole are in jeopardy. This should be a no-brainer. We stay in session. If something happens, which is very possible, hope not, well, something is possible, but it's not going to it's not. Let's, I mean, this is kind of a no-brainer. Just stay in session, nothing nefarious is going to happen, but people are very unhinged, everyone's on edge, and it's better to have this provision in here rather than not.
Mr. Redpath.
Question. How is this, in your view, superior to, I mean, can't a meeting just be called? How is this superior? How is this superior to just calling a LNC meeting on short notice?
You can't.
Yeah.
LNC meetings require 5 days notice.
Okay.
Now, something I've discovered in our policy manual, which needs to be fixed, is there's actually no notice requirements for the executive committee. Everyone's always thought it's been 2 days. I have, Alicia did. I read it again. It isn't. Listen, if you guys just want the executive committee to make decisions over the course of convention if something happens, okay, I'm fine with that. I'm on the executive committee, but I'm trying to make it the LNC.
Call the question.
Okay, Mr. Cowan has called the question. I believe that needs a second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to call the question. Any objection to calling the question?
I object.
No, he's kidding.
All right.
Who called the question, please?
Mr. Cowan, so Region 2, I assume that...
I confirm his...
Yeah, Banner called the
Okay.
question.
All right.
You guys switch spots.
Okay, is there any objection? Going once, going twice, hearing none. Okay, there was no objection to calling the question, so when our secretary is ready, we're going to go to a vote.
Mr. Banner?
Yes.
Mr. Blankenship?
Yes.
Mr. Dassing?
Yes.
Mr. Ford?
Yes.
Mr. Hagopian?
Yes.
Mr. Heyman?
Yes.
I will vote yes. Mr. Alstad?
Aye.
Mr. Maligan?
Aye.
Mr. Nana?
Pass.
Mr. Nikela?
Aye.
Mr. Redpath?
I'll vote yes.
Ms. Vest?
Abstain.
I'm sorry?
Abstain.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Watkins?
Yes.
Ms. Yanuskavich?
Yes.
And then I had a pass was Mr. Nana?
I'll abstain. You don't need my vote.
We always need your vote.
I hope you don't need it for the rest of the convention.
It is 13-02, Madam Chair.
All right, chair's not voting, motion passes. We are done right now.
I do have a question for after the fact. If it happened, how would it be called?
The chair would give notice. The most likely way is the LNC list, so I would, and if possible, at the microphone. It would be all possible ways, I think would be the reasonable way at the call of the chair. We're supposed to all be looking at the LNC list.
You do it on a signal.
All right, let's fix this. It's butterfly. Let's all please behave ourselves the rest of the convention and not need any emergency meetings, which will be extremely annoying and irritating for me. Extremely annoying. Please do not ask me to call an emergency meeting if it is not an emergency. Do not do it.
I have an emergency.
If we run out of alcohol, that's an emergency.
Can we call an emergency
Let me
meeting?
also,
Motion to shave Andrew's mustache.
announcements. Do we have any announcements? Because I have an announcement.
Oh.
The presidential straw poll is ending at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight.
And we just got another $10,000.
Please make sure that if you are going to donate towards your favorite presidential candidate to be on the presidential debate stage, do that between now and 8 p.m. Eastern. Do not wait until 8:01 because I'm cutting it off with staff at 8. And I am not going to let it go in because you said, well, I was sitting in a room with bad Wi-Fi and it was do-do-do-do-do-do for 2 minutes and then it went in. If it is 8:02, it is cut off. 8 Eastern. So don't wait until 8 Eastern. Do it a couple minutes before. Thank you.